hosts for this evening are Geek Domo, Lock 6 Time, and Zaphos. Let's get to the show right about now. That's what's under my hat. There we
Look
go.
at his eyes.
No hair, I'm bald. Hi, everybody.
That's Domo.
That's just Domo.
What up, guys?
Oh, all right. So, yeah, tonight what we're gonna do into the portal, we're gonna try to keep this as a shorter show because we've been doing longer shows and it's causing people to have distress. So tonight we're gonna try to do it. Zaphos has a fake beard.
I had to shave today. I had to be
No, don't say it.
semi-respectable
Don't
and
say
stuff. I had, stuff to do that didn't involve being a dwarf.
So here where I live in New York, it's about 72 degrees outside. It's comfortable. I'm wearing a t-shirt. It's fine. Where Locke is, it's like 30 below because it's England. And then Zaphos is sweating his butt off in about 110 degree temperature out there in California.
It's a little bit warm. Yeah.
So yeah. All right.
Hotter than the fires of
I
hell.
know, it's tough. Well, being in England, living in these castles, it's hard. There's no glass in the windows.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's just like little slits for arrows. They let the draft in something terrible.
I live really close to the Canadian border, and as you know, when you cross the Canadian border, it's a glacier wall, like what you have in what's that show?
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones. It's that glacier wall, and right beyond it is nothing but icebergs and stuff. So it's kind of cooler here.
It's a desolate wasteland, like Scotland, I imagine.
Exactly. It's what it looks like right outside the window. All right, guys. So how does the audio sound? Everything looks good. Everything's great.
Get positioned here.
Everything's great. See you next week, guys.
I don't have a New Yorker accent. I could do it. Hey, Joey. Hey, how you doing over here?
It's Joey.
Hey. Forget about it,
Why are
right?
you trying to pile up the fish like they're sliding all over? What are you doing,
What's
eh?
the matter for you, huh?
What the hell?
I don't know, man.
What's
We
going
were
on?
getting a little bit goofy. We're waiting for Zaphos.
What have I walked into?
I don't know. It's all craziness.
Yeah, this is what happens when you're not around.
Oh my god. Gotta get back to the fundamentals.
Yeah, back to the topic
go?
at hand. We're talking EverQuest Next, and we're going to talk about what they came out with this week, which was about this much information. 0. So we're gonna try to wing it here and figure out what we can talk about today. So we're gonna open up the floor to questions very soon. So get your questions ready. Write them in brackets. Put parentheses around them so that the moderators can grab them as questions, and we'll get started.
That's true, the volume mixer is covering my beautiful person. Just a
Oh, it
little
is.
bit.
Oh, look at that. Why are you so high up in the air there?
I don't know.
I don't either.
It's just the way I float naturally.
Scrunch down a little bit.
I'm already at dwarven proportions here. I mean, I'm not sure what else I can do.
Well, we'll go with it. It's sort of like a tiered effect here. We're like bars on your cell phone. All right.
Wait a minute, how's this?
That's much better. Let's all sit really close to the camera like this and talk. We're just really silly tonight. What's going on? Who's passing out the
I don't
silly
know.
pills?
It's all the excitement of having nothing to talk about.
Exactly.
I feel like Eminem. Did you guys see that Eminem interview at the football game?
No.
I think it was a football game where he just basically freaked out because he was on live TV and he looked like he was pretty much just completely wasted, but in fact he was just freaking out the entire time. Couldn't talk, couldn't put a sentence together. It was pretty funny. It was
Which is
on the
funny
news.
for a guy who's so good at rapping. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway,
let's get on
that's
with
what
the
I feel
show.
like right now.
All right, so the roundtable this week is, what is your favorite small race? What do you guys think of that question and the whole roundtable thing? Go ahead. Go. Zaphos.
Go. Okay, me.
Yes.
Well, my favorite small race. Oh, you mean like Norath race? Okay,
Yeah,
almost walked into a landmine there. I really like obviously halflings, right? I mean, but let's face it. I am Clockwork Zaphos, right? You know, Clockwork gnomes. I mean, bricklayers. You know, they are ideally the perfect race. They've not been a playable race in EQ to date, really. They've just been Clockwork NPCs for the most part, but they are fantastic. So gnomes and Clockwork gnomes especially are definitely my favorite. I'm not really sure what the point of the poll was. Is it to kind of say, hey guys, some of these races are getting, you know, extinct. There's about to be a genocide of some kind. I find it hard to imagine a world without dwarves and halflings and stuff like that, but maybe. I don't know. Froglocks are also high up on the list of being really cool, but they're more of a medium-sized race, so I'll leave that for a different medium-sized roundtable, I think. I imagine them being medium.
Okay. How about you, Mr. Locke?
For me, like my immediate reaction when I read the question was dwarf straight away, but that wasn't an option in the thing. I think I'm a bit confused as to why they're asking the question. Like, I'm trying to imagine one of those roundtable videos that they do about it. You know, just talking about I like this race, and then they all drink lemonade. The end. You know, it's who cares? You know what I mean? But maybe, like, hopefully, fingers crossed, it's a jumping off point to talk about. You know, maybe scaling. It's something I've thought of in Landmark. You know, it looks like at the moment we're going to have, you know, human avatars to play with. I mean, that seems like what they're going for, you know, what they're focusing the animation on. You know, it's always the most popular race, so it makes sense. But, you know, then how are we going to scale like different buildings and things? Like, if we wanted to make, you know, like I do, if you wanted to make a dwarven steakhouse, you know, what are you gonna scale the doors to and the furniture and everything? So, you know, maybe it's part of that. I'm trying to make it interesting.
No, that's fine.
Instead of being like, oh, those little fae, they've got wings, haven't they?
Pretty. I like them.
Pretty wings.
No, I would go with gnomes too. I didn't even think about a clockwork race. That's that would be interesting. I'd like to see that actually.
Consulting hours are 9 to 5.
Okay.
Fees are reasonable.
They are surprisingly reasonable, actually. I was impressed.
All right. Well, yeah, I think the questions are a bit vague, and somebody in chat was saying that they're making them vague on purpose, so that we're sort of directing where things are supposed to go instead of being very specific. But you know.
I know, but I think this one's strange because it's not a discussion, isn't it? It's just stating a preference. Like, how do you then, you know, have an objective discussion about game design based on you know, whether people like a specific small race more than another one?
But maybe they're going to use it for development. Maybe they're going to say, well, we have a choice to make Ratanga first or Gnomes. Which one got more votes? It looks like we're going to go Ratanga instead.
Yeah, it could be.
I mean, a lot of these roundtables are designed to get the community excited, right?
Yeah.
They're intentionally designed to create friction, to create conversation, right? So I don't want to ruin anybody's, you know, immersion here, right? Somebody accused me of playing. I was playing EQ with somebody last night, and they accused me of that. Anyway, I don't want to ruin anybody's immersion, right? But there is more than just development. Oh my God, Locke is on. I don't know.
Sorry.
I feel more and more.
Sorry.
Like the Twilight Zone.
I'm
crazy.
taking this very seriously.
What is he drinking?
I don't know, but he's got two separate drinks. It's confusing me.
This is crazy. It's crazy. Okay.
I don't know what's in the little brown mug, but it bothers me.
So I think it's good to keep that in mind, though. You know, not talking about immersion, but just keeping in mind that there is other benefits to having these conversations besides what they might develop out of them. It gets us excited too. It does a good job of getting us excited as gamers about, oh yeah, I love gnomes, you know, and you know, that kind of thing. So, but yeah, immersion.
Would you stop saying
I
that?
want a T-shirt that says "Zaphos ruined my immersion."
We'll get to that. I want to hear about that story, but not right now. But yeah,
I like that.
definitely.
Yeah.
All right, let's get on to the next topic then. Okay, we're going to talk about binary morality in video games. So, what this is referring to is, there's either good or evil in games like Star Wars: The Old Republic. You could be on the dark side or the light side, and you ventured far enough in one way, and it sort of changed the way your character even appeared. And then there's questions that arise, like if I'm a lawfully good person and I see a orc baby on the side of the road who's crying and needs help, and you help out the orc baby.
Or punt it.
Or punt it. Right. So it's an evil race, so you should probably punt it. But then that is going against your alignment. So then how's that going to work?
No, that'd ruin my immersion.
It would.
If Zaphos went around punting orc babies.
Swift punt would ruin it right up. just destroy it. Should we answer that one?
Yeah, go ahead. If you want to go first, Zaphos, you can.
Yeah. I think punting orc babies is probably questionably moral. It depends on your perspective, So binary morality. Damn. I like just it's 103 degrees. I'm talking about binary morality. Welcome to Monday. So I think.
Do you want me to go first, Zaphos, and you can have a think?
No, not at all. No, I think you've done quite enough damage as it is. I think you just need to settle down. So I think. I'm just kidding. I'm not kidding. So I think that basically the idea of having binary morality is sort of an easy way out, in my opinion. I think there should be shades of gray. I don't think it should just be you're good or you're bad, because it's a little bit boring. I like there to be some kind of questionable center that is, somewhat gray. Let's just put it like that. I'll come back to that after I hear what Locke says. But I think that's. I like there to be more than binary. There should be multicolors.
Multiple shades of gray. And I think they're going to be doing a lot of that in Storybricks, being able to define just how gray you are. Like if you're black or white, and then in between there's going to be varying gradients. Yeah, I mean, just before Locke goes, I mean, I think for me, somebody in chat mentioned chaotic neutral. Chaotic neutral is exactly what I'm talking about. When I played pen and paper Advanced Dungeons and Dragons back in the days of yore, I was always chaotic neutral because it gave me the ability to say, yeah, I feel like being good and helping this guy. Nah, I'm not going to help this guy. This baby's getting punted. This one's getting rescued. I like that flexibility. I don't want to have to be always the good guy. What if I wake up and I'm in a pissy mood and I just want to be bad? Right. It shouldn't suddenly make me all bad because I still have a heart.
Yeah, well, I think that makes you more of an individual, doesn't it? If you can make that choice. And I think the issue that I've had with binary morality in the past, I think Mass Effect is a great example, where basically you play through the game once, being all Paragon or all Renegade, depending on your preference, and then you play through again and go the other way, and it's almost like you have to always pick the same one, so you're not even really making a choice. It's the same, I remember Star Wars: The Old Republic, the other example Domo gave, if you wanted the coolest stuff, you just had to always go down that path. And to me, that means that it's not really a morality choice. You just start at the beginning. It's like picking a class. You might as well just press a button that says, I want to be evil, or I want to be good. And then there's the crazy out there players that try and stay neutral and actually miss out on a lot because, they haven't wanted to go one way or the other. And I think, when a game limits your choice to that, whether you're basically just picking A or B, and I don't think that's a morality system at all. I reckon, that's just a choice that you make at the start of the game, and it doesn't reflect morality in any way. So yes. Oh, the other game that I wanted to bring up actually was The Walking Dead, the Telltale version. It's one of my favorite games of all time. I loved it. I played it through once. I finished it and I never touched it again. I never wanted to see anything else that happens. The part of my brain that does all my best thinking. It tells me that it is all on rails. You know, it's the illusion of choice that they're trying to create. They're trying to make it seem like every decision, every difficult moral choice that you're making, like, will have a huge impact. Whereas, you know, really it branches a little, and then it carries you on down the same path that you would have anyway. But it is those really difficult no right answer choices where you have to really, in the moment, under pressure, go, right, this is what we're going to do. To me, that's a compelling morality system. I don't think that that's possible in an MMO, so, I'm not holding them to that standard, but I'm just saying, when you're forced to make decisions where there is no right answer, I think that's when you start having interesting morality discussions, not, click on the blue button if you want Paragon points, or click on the red button if you want Renegade points.
Absolutely. Did you want to come back with something at Zaphos? You said you wanted to hear what he had to say first?
Yeah, but it wasn't much good, so I don't have any follow-up. No, I think I like what he said.
Just saying words on the internet.
Exactly. No, I think it's exactly right. It's having the freedom to make your own choices, not making choices based on the fact that you want to be perceived as good or getting a specific quest reward, or I don't want to have to be good because I want to be friendly with the elves or something like that. Because if I'm not, then I can't do X, Y, or Z, or I won't get that cool sword or whatever. That's okay as long as there's a balance to it in the dark side of the world, right? I just think you have to be able to make choices that are reasonably human in games today. Games should be evolving, and the choices we make in games should be evolving. And if they're not, then what the hell are we doing, right? If we really want games to be seen as a form of art as well as entertainment, then of course they should evolve the systems they use to gauge players' behavior. The Rosom book that we've talked about and Georgeson's talked about a lot is really an interesting way to kind of facilitate that. The fact that so many objects and players and NPCs, the fact that so many of these things all have data in the universe associated with them now is a great chance to allow people to express themselves more fully. Of course, it's still going to have limitations, but self-expression should be a big part of any sandbox game without overly complicated reasons to not self-express, or without overly complicated reasons to self-express.
Oops, sorry about that. Yeah, I saw a thread on Reddit just recently. You were talking about the information. There is apparently a way that every single voxel can store a bit of information too. And I saw a reply from Sony saying, somebody said, well, why don't we make it to where we can keep track of the data, how many times a character walked over this particular path on this road, and then that they could then use that for data migration and that sort of thing. So it'd be cool to see.
They almost have to do that, don't they? The way that they've described movements of mobs throughout the world. They've said, the traffic through a particular area will affect how mobs are dispersed throughout the world. So fingers crossed it was something that they've already been talking about, and someone's hit on the same great idea. I hope. I'd love to see that. I think it'd be incredible. Start like wearing out paths between places, and then makes the optimum place to build roads. I'm obsessed with building roads in this game. I really want to see I want to see a network that is useful and makes sense, and has to be has to be defended and can be destroyed. And if it's destroyed, it really ruins people's day. I'd like to see that kind of thing.
Having to figure to walk all the way around.
Potentially it has this vision. We definitely need bricks for roads, but it definitely has this vision of like this Monty Python sketch, where the guys pitch a tent on the side of the road and they're worried about the orcs. So one guy says to the other, hey, Bob, you need to walk up and down the road like 100 times tonight so the orcs think that there's lots of traffic here. It does open up room for a little bit of player manipulation if it's not done right, in the sense that players can artificially manipulate things if it's not done with a good set of checks and balances. But yeah, good discussion, interesting topic. I think we're in for a very good surprise when we finally get to EQ Next, and we're going to see some of that in Landmark. I think it's going to be very exciting to see what a voxel is really all about, not just the fact that it's a graphical element, but the fact that the data supporting it, the data behind it, the attributes of blocks on bricks, hard versus soft, things like that. I actually recently suggested the idea that wouldn't it be cool if objects, voxels in the world, had magical properties that could be manipulated, much like redstone in Minecraft, so that you could you leverage the magical properties in ore, for example, to do almost a combination of science and magic in crafting, which I think would fit very well. But again, consulting hours. So, yeah.
That's fine. All right, well, let's move on then. We got some questions coming in. Make sure everybody you're writing questions because we're going to come up to the Q&A very shortly. We're scooting right through here. All right, this one's a big one. This is a lot of people said they really wanted to come and hang out and chat with us tonight, specifically for this topic right here. Trade skills, crafting, selling, and currency. What are your thoughts, Mr. Locke? You can go first.
Oh, dear Lord. Right, so, talking about what we know so far, we know that in Landmark there's going to be like communal crafting tables in areas that they want to be player hubs that will also involve some kind of market system, and they've said that there's definitely going to be economy within the game in terms of buying and selling, everything from whole plots, just the whole shebang, real estate style, down to just raw materials. So I think the fact that we know that means that even within Landmark, items will have value. I don't know what that means for currency. If there's crafting tables in communal areas, I'm hoping for maybe some communal crafting efforts. If you're asking my opinion, what I'd like, what I really don't want to see is the same type of crafting system that we've seen in so many games, where it's just you have a list of things that you can make and you just click on the things. Guild Wars 2 made a bit more effort with the whole recipe thing, but there was just a pattern to that, and it was always the same pattern. So it's as soon as you discover how the patterns work, that's it. I'd like to see, I forget the name of the game, but there's a fantastic example. It's floating around on the Camelot and Chain forums about having a little skill based, like a Flash style game, having a little skill based game as part of crafting. So as well as the numbers going up for your character. They've talked about equipment as well, haven't they? I'm rambling so much at the moment.
It's okay.
But yeah. So if we have an actual player skill based system for crafting, I think that could be a very interesting addition to the MMO space. Maybe keep it simple except for the very, very high end items. Just so we don't exclude a huge number of players that don't want to be part of that. And as well, they've talked about different gear actually being usable with crafting. So maybe you could have a bit of gear that had a stat on it that made that little mini game easier. So if you wanted to make, say, a sword, you could actually have a blacksmith hammer with plus 20 dexterity or whatever it does. Maybe it'll give you that little bit of extra time to click the specific point on the sword blade that it's telling you to click, or to move the line through through the other lines when you're maybe threading something, like tying something off. So I think that's what I'd like to see, a skill-based crafting system that was affected by gear, and maybe some sort of communal effort for crafting things. It's a long-winded answer.
That's fine. No, I like the idea. I didn't even think of a skill-based crafting that way. So basically what you're saying is you start off with a copper ingot, and you start off with some leather and some string, and with that you take the copper piece over, and then you have to play like a little mini game where you have to hit X, X, Y, Y, X or something like that in a certain time to make it. And if you do it just perfectly in time, you get a legendary kind of equipment. But if you do it, you mess up and you're off by half a microsecond, your reaction time's off, then you get a little bit lower quality. That would be actually kind of fun, because it would make crafting kind of fun and exciting, and you would try to really hone your skills so that you make the better equipment. I think that is a neat idea. I never even thought about bringing that sort of thing into EverQuest Next. What do you think, Mr. Zappos?
Well, I will carry the flag for the opposition on this one.
All right, go for it.
I hate minigames with passion, right? If I want to be Mickey Mouse and bloody Fantasia, then I'll just I'll go cosplay or something, right? I like the idea behind what you guys are saying. make it more exciting, right? Make it more meaningful. And EverQuest 2 had a pretty cool crafting system that was a little bit like that. I felt like Mickey Mouse in Fantasia. I really did, or whatever the hell that thing's called. And it gets a little bit tedious. The first or second time, it's really cool. The 20,000th time makes you want to off yourself. Really.
But do you like the system where you sit there and just hit a button and say craft 500 swords and then walk away?
No.
Okay.
Yes and no. Yes
Okay.
and no.
All right.
So yes and no. Why yes and why no? There's an apprenticeship involved in great crafting systems that requires you to grind it out in some respects. To put forth effort, to be invested in this, right? It doesn't mean like crafting out 500 swords or something that's kind of silly as well, but there should be some kind of curve, some kind of learning and development of your understanding. For me, I rather see the understanding and the skill come from how a crafter manipulates resources, knows where to find resources, something that Locke's talked a lot about, which is going out and trading for resources cross-region, knowing who your suppliers are, having a supply chain, maybe a little bit more technically minded than just, keeping it in isolation. I'd rather see systems that require crafting to be integrated into the greater game as a whole. So things like trading, between different regions. If I live in a mountainous region and Locke lives in a swamp, maybe we trade resources rather than, I didn't mean anything by that. But I could have said this.
How did you know I live in a swamp?
It's the beard, that big troll thing. Anyway, was that dumb? I'm not sure. So I think that, having this kind of a system that allows you to become a master at something, a specialization system, hey, I'm going to be the best sword maker you're ever going to meet, or the best brick maker, we've talked about that, or the best, armor smith, whatever you want to have it. I like something that kind of forces you to specialize, forces you to go out, find the best resources, the best materials, the best enchants, the best whatever, and simply put it all together and, really specialize in something. You could arguably be better at smelting ore than actually making a sword. I'd like it to be more granular, where there's different, because I think crafting is going to be a huge part of the game.
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody's going to do something with crafting at some point, and I think everybody's going to be impacted by it, even if they do nothing with it. So I think having those kind of specializations is going to be a way to really bring it into the forefront as a class, as opposed to just something that everybody kind of has to do, even though they hate it. I don't want to see that kind of a system. I want to see crafting be more, for example, bring me your sword, and I'll, use voxels, I'll modify it, I'll change how it looks. It'll look like a different sword. It'll have my mark on it, it'll have my brand on it, it'll have magical effects on it from the voxels that are applied. And this is what happens in Cube World, which is a very basic sort of example of that. And it's really, really cool. It's a really cool system. So I really, really like that. Overall, like I said, I just think we're going to see crafting be really, really core to the game, and everything about the game. Everything from building houses and player cities to weaponry to armor to clothing. I think everything is going to have been touched by crafting at some point. In my video Return of the Crafter, I talked about this in great depth, because it's not like a World of Warcraft where crafting is a resource to get you your potions so you can go do a raid.
Mm-hmm.
I think crafting is going to be an integral part of the game, and really I think it's going to be the backbone on which the game is designed, actually. So,
what about if you did a system where it was like a combination of the two, where you did the grind because you were an apprentice and you had to work your way up, but you did the skill-based thing where, like in the beginning, you had to hit a bracket that was this wide, and it was really easy, and then as you did the crafting more and more, it became more narrow, but it was something that you were more proficient in and it gave you a better result. So maybe it becomes easier over time to make a copper sword, but then make a titanium sword would be something a lot harder and it requires a lot more skill, and you can, so it's sort of like a skill in the game that you've apprenticed for, and then on top of that a skill that you've actually just done by muscle memory.
Conceptually, I like the idea. I think it's creative, right? But where I run into problems is accessibility. For example, if I'm, not that agile with a controller or a keyboard, if I'm not a clicky type person,
mm-hmm.
if I'm drunk when I'm playing,
Yeah.
If I'm elderly, if I'm a child, whatever, I don't know. I mean, the list can go on. But my point is that it takes away from the reward And as we pointed out earlier, it breaks my immersion, right? Because I want to be the best craftsperson without having to be the best Twitch player. I don't want to have to be a Twitch console expert and order those extra long thumbsticks just to be able to make sure I get that damn nail in the hole, right?
Yeah.
I want to be able to excel at that without having to rely on what I'm doing with my fingers in the real world.
Okay.
So that's kind of how I think of it. I think I don't know why, I just hate mini games because I just do. There's something about them that's tainted. I don't know. I just don't like them. They never work.
I do. I hate mini games as well. As one of the main reasons I don't play Guild Wars 2 really anymore is because I'm sick of it. I don't want to play it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't want to do it.
Yeah.
One thing that we haven't talked about yet. I just thought we have an adventurer class for Landmark. Do you think we might see a blacksmith class that has to be collected, maybe, or maybe
Carpenter
think
class?
about the apprenticeship thing? Well, yeah, why not? But as Zaphos was talking about, apprenticing in something and having to put, time and effort into it, perhaps your apprenticeship could be as you build up to then, being able to call yourself a blacksmith and actually start, instead of just building like base raw materials for things, you can actually play as that class. And, with all the class switching and everything we're going to have, you could play as that class and really, start to specialize in that sort of field. I think that could be an interesting direction to take the game in.
Yeah, Chendane just said carpenter, cobbler, thatcher, cooper, all these different types of subclasses that you could play. I mean, there's 40 classes, and we haven't even talked about that. Well, that'll be a topic for another show, but really, how many different types of warrior can you have? How many different types of mage can you have? How many different, what are you going to have? Somebody who specializes in mushroom growing or, kind of weird class? I mean, I just don't get where all these classes are coming from.
I'd play that.
Yeah, I would too, actually.
Yeah, I
sounds
think
cool.
Specialist.
that's what I'm really hoping for. It's a big ask. It depends how much they're willing to invest in the crafting system. But if they really are serious about it and they do with it what I think is possible, what I know is possible, then I would like to see individual classes. I would like to have an armor smith, a blacksmith, somebody that purveyor of ore, just like in Ultima Online, for example, you could actually spend your whole career just mining and selling ore. That was a viable way to spend your time. You could also equally spend a lot of your time just smelting ore. You could build breastplates. You could do a little bit of both. There was just this real closeness to you and the materials you're working with. And what that also allowed was for lots of player interaction and lots of recognition as being the best blacksmith or the best armor or one of the best. That give you a place in the community, which I think is really, really important. And you grow your reputation just like you do in the real world. You grow your brand, as it were. So I really like systems that allow you to do that. If you just have the crafting class, I guess it's okay, but it's not nearly as good as if you break it out, unless you do a skill-based subsystem to the crafting class that allows you to specialize. But yeah, I agree with you. 40 is a lot. When you go through your basics and then you add in a couple of iterations of other ones, you're at about 20.
Right.
So
yeah.
Where do you go from there? So I think having really good crafting classes, adventurer class, I really, really like that. And building systems that require those to interact with each other would be really cool as well. Especially if my adventurer buddy goes out and finds something exciting that I can use in my crafting. That's really cool as well. And of course, with multi-classing, maybe you can, like, for example, my dream come true, I'm going to be an adventurer multi-classed with a crafter. All right, whatever kind of crafter or whatever. But yeah,
Brickmaker.
That is absolutely brickmaker. But that is perfect,
Mason.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, that is absolutely perfect. You can create a whole lore for yourself, a whole kind of story for yourself around being this, cool explorer that goes out exploring the world and brings back the spoils of your exploration and uses them to build things. I really like that.
You could be a mason and do like Freemasonry. You could have bring the whole Freemasonry thing in with their little triangle and square and all that stuff. Yeah, that would be kind of fun. Now, what about currency? Now, I talked a little bit about this with Locke beforehand, but you're going to be able to buy things with Sony Cash, of course, which is you're paying for with cash out of your own pocket, and then you're going to be able to make things on the what's it called, the Player Studio, and you can sell things there for cash. there's going to be like a merging of the two different currencies. Like in game, are you going to be able to buy things with Sony Cash, or are you going to be paying gold or platinum for them? What do you guys think about that, as far as crafted stuff?
I think being able to buy in-game currency from other players, like kind of in an indirect way, the way like the Guild Wars 2 or Eve is probably the best example, isn't it, with the Plex system. I think that's cool. I think it discourages gold sellers, which is obviously good. I think it makes people that are cash rich time poor. It means that they don't have to spend time doing things that they don't want to do to get that in-game money, and it still rewards the people that that have a lot of time to play the game, and that are putting that investment in to be able to get to go the other way and to buy the things from the cash shop using their in-game time, which I think is equally as important. So I'm pretty in favor of it. I don't like having a million different currencies. I don't like a different token for every dungeon, and then a PvP currency, and then karma, and then laurels, and then and then badges of justice and badges of honor. And
which game are you talking about, lad?
You could go on. It's just a bit silly, isn't it? And I mean, in the game, like obviously items will have value. To players, like there will be items that players want, and there will, I think they're, working to a standard. There's a reason that's what I think almost every culture does in the real world. Just it makes sense to have a sort of a standard that we can use, because I don't want to see just a pure barter and trade system. That's not for me. I think okay, like let people do that, absolutely. Let people trade things and barter that way. But I think without like a flat currency system, I think it's just awkward. It's awkward as hell, and people will pick something to use as the currency anyway. It's bound to happen.
What about
so? Yes,
auction
that's
houses?
My opinion on currency.
What about auction houses then? I mean, if you're doing a system that's not totally based on bartering, you're going to have a place to sell your stuff, and if you're not online at the time, you still want to be able to sell it. So the auction house is like your only alternative to that.
I hate auction houses.
I love.
He loves them. He hates them. Perfect. Go ahead.
I love player-run market stalls. I love small. I love like little pockets of I talk about this all the time, but I love like separate little player hubs that give you a reason to travel to the different player hubs, that make the journey, that make the journey an experience in itself, make that worthwhile part of the game, and then to create a sort of trade network, I think opens so many possibilities for the game as a whole, not just with trading and crafting, but just in terms of gameplay. I think in a sandbox they'd be mad not to do that. I think having a global auction house would really upset me for this game.
Too.
I think they'd just be missing out on so much possibility. So yeah, fingers crossed.
What about you, Zaphos? You said you had some opinion on that.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't like auction houses. There really is no such thing as a global auction house in the universe, and why should there be one in my game? It's really silly. I just don't like it. It's a cheap, sort of lazy mechanism for telling your player base that trade is not important, which is what it really does, and it really essentially says that anything we put on this auction house is no longer a valid form of world currency. It's a valid form of trash that we want to get you to trade and lose currency on, with our inevitable cut and all that kind of crap. And we've seen recently a lot of games from very big companies and very big titles do terrible things with auction houses, and they're just a plague on the universe, basically. So what we want is exactly what Locke was talking about, which is really reasons to trade with people, and let the players determine through logic and intelligence what items are currency items, what things are important enough that they have higher value, and let those items become the baseline for the economy. In a game like Eve, Plex is not just a way to sell and buy between players and bring real life currency into the game in an immersive way. It's really about creating a baseline for the economy. And to have a good, solid, and strong economy, you need a way to create a baseline through itemization, not through an auction house. So, and also currency fluctuates, so currency shouldn't be, like gold should not be the actual baseline currency. It should be, the rarity of items typically, and that's something.
Although that could be incredibly interesting if we have to go out and mine the gold in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I think I'm not saying this should happen. I just think it could create some very, very interesting gameplay if that was the case.
Especially if it was like
we'd end up on the rock standard within a week.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The Zaphos standard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody was saying, like, what about something like eBay, which is sort of a global, real-world auction house, but they are sort of localized. You can buy stuff here in America from eBay in Germany. Then you have to deal with the shipping and all that other stuff. eBay, yes, is a good example, but then, there's the whole example of EVE Online, which had the auction houses spread apart, and you had to fly to the particular auction house to pick up the item that you wanted from that star system. So would that be something you guys would like to see, something like that in EverQuest Next, a more localized auction system that was for the area?
Yeah, I think there should absolutely be local markets. Maybe some kind of way to search them, like within a particular area, or even maybe if you could search them globally. But then it's up to you. In the same way as Eve, it's up to you if making that journey is worth your time. Obviously, for a lot of people, it will be. Like I said, it opens up avenues, emergent gameplay, and all that. I was going to make a point and I've totally forgotten what it was. Zaphos, bail me out.
Zaphos, help him out.
So, yeah, for sure. I mean, regional stuff is really cool. I guess it would be tolerable. It was tolerable in EVE because it was so sophisticated in how it was integrated into the overall economy. EVE have an on-staff PhD economist who runs. Go ahead, Locke.
Yeah, I was going to say the important thing. Why I think it's important, everything I've been saying about crafting and everything so far and how I think the auction house would work all comes from my belief that gear should always be transitory. There should never be, you should never get to the point where you're like, okay, my gear's done.
Yeah.
It should always, I think we've actually got a question on this, so I won't go into it too much, but I think the reason it works in EVE, that's what we're talking, that's what Zaphos just mentioned, which made me twig, was that ships get destroyed, items disappear. Whereas, in a lot of MMOs now, we have gold sinks, so a lot of gold's going out of the economy, but because items never leave the economy, it means that items are worthless. So there's, in Guild Wars 2 at the moment, it's so easy to gear your character at level 80. Any item that's level 80 rare and below is essentially
Right.
worthless. It's not even worth as much as the materials that were used to create it.
Yep.
And that's not a sensible economy in my opinion, which is why I think we need to have a cycle of things being created and destroyed. I think if you're serious about having a crafting driven sandbox game, for me, I'm not an economist, but I can't imagine how you could maintain item value without having items being consistently destroyed or at least damaged to the point where they needed to use more materials to then
fix them back up.
to then repair them.
Yeah, like in real life, if you
so that's
your armor.
why, everything I'm saying about all these local auction houses and everything, I think then it creates a real urgent need to move products around the world, because crafters are going to need to have these items in order to build the equipment and gear for players to then go out and use that equipment and then get it trashed all over again, and that's how you create the economy, by creation and destruction.
Trendane just mentioned item decay, and that's a really good idea, because if things are constantly decaying and breaking down, you have to go back to a blacksmith, get it repaired. You have to go get your armor repaired. He's got 10 arrows stuck through the last fight, so there's all these holes, so you got to get them fixed. All that stuff builds the economy so that there's always work for those blacksmiths to do. It's not that they're just cranking out 500 swords a day. they're sitting around waiting
and
for
it's
people to
actual
show.
work as well. It's like
Right.
you need to go and you need to find a blacksmith, and you say, "Can you repair my breastplate?" And the blacksmith goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, mate. I'm really busy today.
Or I
I
got-
have to come back another time."
Yeah.
And they go the next best guy down the line until they find someone who can do it. You know,
Right.
brilliant.
And you want to go to him because he's the best one on the server. You know that he's the best. All right, so everybody go ahead and start wrapping up your questions to get them ready to send in. We're going to do a 15-minute speed round through these questions because we're going to try to do this exactly an hour today. So,
Not another speed round.
speed round questions.
I think
Go.
we have all the questions.
Pressure.
Right?
Do we have some questions? Let's see.
I-
I think we have the full list for today.
Am I doing
Yeah, Locke, you
questions?
can read them.
I'm falling to pieces here. All right, let's do it.
Yep.
We have a question from DJ. Last night in EverQuest, a curious question came up. If there are water voxels with weight, how do you think it could impact the world of Norath and the player? This is very interesting. Something we haven't yet seen how water is going to be handled in the voxel environment. So, Domo, do you want to
Yeah.
take a crack?
Actually, I do because I've seen a couple of simulations I watched on YouTube that were they were exactly that. They were water flowing in a voxel water flowing down a voxel landscape, and as it went down the landscape, if it hit something like a light dirt, it took it up with it and then indented the ground there. But if it hit a rock, it just kind of flowed over it. And I believe that's totally doable with this system. I don't know if they're going to implement that or not, but that I believe is something that they could do. I really do.
Well, does that mean if the water can destroy the environment, does that mean that it could affect the players as well? Like if enough water came rushing down a hill, would that wash players away with the
Why not?
with the way that the movement system
or like a
works?
landslide, it takes everything, turns it into
Yeah.
mud, and it all comes crashing down. I believe that could be
Yeah.
done. Whether or not that's going to actually happen, I don't know. But
whether
that also
it-
brings
yeah.
in another real quick question I want to cover: physics. In Minecraft, there is no problem with you take and build a rock that goes into space and has no support structure to it at all. It just can keep on going forever, and you're floating above the surface of the ground indefinitely. There is no real physics involved. Now, I know they want to have real physics in this game, so what do you guys think? Do you think with the voxels and with the water, are they going to be able to do that? Are you going to have to build a structure with supports and buttresses and things to extend it out?
In Landmark, I sort
Yeah.
of hope not, because I think it stifles a little bit of creativity and possibility. I'm sure there will be things that float in EverQuest Next. I'd be shocked if there wasn't a floating castle somewhere.
Yeah, right.
There has to be almost. I think in terms of water and lava and things, I hope liquids behave like liquids, and I hope that they flow. Maybe in Landmark you could have, in the same way Minecraft have they have a spawning block that
Yep.
keeps sort of churning it out. I think that would probably be the best way to handle that. I'm not a game designer, I don't know. But I'd love to see. I mean, imagine if you could make like an actual water wheel that turned
Yeah.
from a waterfall, like in Landmark. That I think that would be an incredible thing to be able to do, and it opens up whole new possibilities of making engines that way. So yeah, I think the water having weight is a brilliant idea, and hopefully they'll implement it in a way that it can interact with the world in a meaningful way. And the PvP applications, imagine a PvP map that was just like a box just surrounded by water, and slowly as the fight went on, all your abilities slowly chipped away at the edges of the box until the water all started rushing in and killed you all.
Killed you all.
I'd play that.
Because you couldn't swim.
I'd play that. Hopefully someone in Landmark make that for me. I'll be in there all day.
Go ahead, Zaphos. What do you think?
Yeah, just real briefly, it's an interesting question and an interesting problem. The nature of a lot of players is to grief when griefing is possible, and to exploit when exploiting is possible, and so on and so on. They don't do very well at policing themselves. I especially like to break games that can be broken, and have a long history of doing so. I've hacked a lot of games, but without getting into that black part of my chaotic neutral character, I think it's just more about how far can you push limits, how far can you explore, and if you can create massive cascade of lava to run down into a player city and burn it to the ground, you can be damn sure there's a handful of players who are going to do that. So that's the problem side of it, because it disrupts the integrity of the game world. It creates situations that were not intended as part of the game design. Even though they're possible, they weren't the way it was intended to be used. And so that can create a problem. Then you have to create checks and balances for that, and so forth and so on. So, without getting into all of that lengthy debate, yes, I hope that voxels have things like weight and density, and I think they will. We know that when you destroy something in an AoE, the AoE voxels do damage in an AoE fashion. So if that monster destroys a building and voxels fly out from there and you're beside it, you're going to take AoE splash damage. That implies density, weight, and mass, and all those types of things. So I think there will be, but I think there'll be a series of checks and balances in place. How they do that, I'm really excited to see, because it's going to be very, very hard.
All right. Next one.
Oh, we're ready to speed round.
Speed round. We got 10 minutes.
Neurotoxin.
Yeah.
Legendary Neurotoxin says that should player interactions with the world be recorded like a journal book, so the player can compile and print a tome of all their achievements. Zaphos, I know you're a big fan of the Rose song. Do you wanna talk about this?
Yeah, I mean they will be recorded. Absolutely. To what extent, I'm not sure, but the Rose song will record your life and times, as it were. I wouldn't want to print mine. It'd probably be A, incriminating, and B, probably too revealing, and C, probably really long. So yeah, I don't think it'd be printable, but having access online to a robust sort of user interface that lets you explore your history would be really cool.
I think it'd be a fantastic addition to an armory type system,
Right.
the Warcraft armory, so you can look up a character and you can actually, if you could maybe see some highlights from that book, it'd be an incredible tool to have.
I think it's going to be great.
I think.
Go ahead.
Yeah?
Sorry, I was just saying the achievement to be able to share. That's what it's all about, right? That's why we do this, is so that we can say, look at this epic thing that I did. It's right here in my book. The Rose song.
Pics or it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Anyone could have written that book.
So sorry, I interrupted you. Go continue what you were saying.
I was just gonna say, should we move on for the quick fire?
Yeah.
I think the short answer is yes.
Yes.
Hopefully it will be used in an interesting way. So another question from my main man, Legendary Neurotoxin. How much should weather affect the terrain and travel through it? Should volumes fill with water and snow, etc.? Another weather question. Domo, what do you think?
I think
should weather affect the terrain?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to see snow. I want to walk through snow. I want to make it difficult to walk through snow. And also, I want to be underground, digging in a hole, and I hit the bottom of a lake by accident, and it all floods the cavern like it does in Minecraft. I mean, that's what happens, and that should happen. So yeah, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I like weather. Oh, sorry, Locke. I was just gonna say I like weather, mostly because I like to turn on the thunder and rain and just leave it there, and then just chill out. I like that because we don't get any rain here really.
So bleak.
Yeah, so, we don't get any rain here, so I love it. It's a very relaxing sound. It's the sound of my childhood, which is gone forever. So, bullshit. Anyway, so I think that weather is really good, and I do think that snow should rest on surfaces. And I'm not sure about how much of an impact I want it. I'd probably get really pissed off if every time it snowed, I got cut my movement speed in half.
Yeah.
Parkour in the snow. I don't know. I think some of that would be cool to a degree. I just would, it's what I've said all along. My philosophy is this: the first couple of times you do something, it can be really cool. But you have to design based on the 10,000th time that somebody does something, because that's the only really true way that you can design for something that's going to be a good experience over the long haul, not just in the first few minutes. And lots of games have failed horribly at that principle by making things that seemed really cool at first, but when you've been doing it for 5 years, you really, really hate it. I'm not saying I hate your idea, by the way, Doma. I like that idea, but I'm just saying it has to be done with a little bit of caution.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, cool. I think it should have some kind of effect on the world. I think maybe a visibility thing for heavy rain or snow. I think if it's predictable where it's going to happen, if there's a rainforest area, you can expect it to rain a lot. If there's a snowy area, you can expect it to be snow. I think if it's too random, it could be really, really annoying. But maybe certain areas could have certain weather effects. I think that might be it might add a bit of interest to the world for sure. 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
What do you reckon, guys? 5 minutes.
We can do it.
Oh,
Next question.
sweet baby Jeebus on a bicycle. Switching classes. How should the mechanics work? When, where, how often, etc.
Oh God.
Should we go for another hour? Should we go for?
We
another
could
hour?
definitely talk about this exact thing for an hour.
Oh man.
That's
We'll talk about that one next
coining
week.
Has anyone got a short answer to this question?
All right, short answer. When out of combat? Where out of combat? How out of combat? Etc. Out of combat.
So just anywhere out of combat, don't have to visit a trainer, don't have to pay someone some money or go
Well,
to
if you've already
like
got
a
it built
temple
into your-
dedicated to the class.
If it's in your book, like your book of classes or whatever it's going to be, I think you should be able to switch out pretty easily out of class.
Yeah?
Sorry, coining cleavage. I'm trying to go for speed. Sorry, we could
Go
spend
in-
a
go
whole
in
show on
speed.
this. Yeah, go ahead.
Zaphos, do you have a short answer? You want to give
Yeah,
a
I
short
do.
opinion?
I think we should definitely include that in next week's topic list.
Okay. I'll put it-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should we do a big chunk on that? Because
Yeah, we'll
I
do
know.
Yeah,
that
I got a
we
lot
do
to
whole
say
show
on that. Yeah.
To be honest, we've got Theatre Elf. Hey, thanks for chipping in. How do you feel about degrading gear and repair? ... crafting. I don't know what that means. Yeah, we've touched on this a little bit already. Do we like the idea of degrading gear? Doma, do you like the idea?
Absolutely, yeah. That was the thing we just got through talking about. Absolutely, I think the gear should degrade, and it should degrade quickly, and it should be even for every class. Though I think that if you're playing a tank, you shouldn't have to pay any more of a bill than you do for a wizard having some highly embroidered piece of gear. If it's just a cloak, yeah, then it could be cheaper than what the tank has to pay for his breastplate. But for something that is really intricate, like I would suppose some sort of magical cloak would be, they should have to pay a lot for that to get repaired just as much as I never liked the fact that tanks always sort of got the cheap end of the stick because they're getting pounded on and they got to pay for that. But yes, degrade.
Absolutely, I agree. I agree totally with that. I think item destruction is as important to a game economy as having gold sinks and such in place. I think item inflation is terrible. Zaphos, quick answer. Come on, 3 minutes. We can do it. We can do it.
Yes, I think there should be some form of removal of gear from the economy. How that takes place, I'm not sure. If I want to go on my amazing epic quest that takes me 6 months to complete, and I complete it, and the item only lasts me 2 weeks because I was in some heavy fighting with orcs, that's probably not so wonderful. So there needs to be some kind of rule set that governs it, that allows for the extension of rare items through whatever kind of crafting, repair. I don't like when items completely degrade to the point of destroying them, unless, like in Minecraft, you see that it's going to be broke and you go ahead and break it. That's your choice. If you want to do that instead of stopping and repairing it, I think that's probably okay.
Okay.
I agree. Yeah, I think degrading is probably better than out and out destruction. I think you can still use material to repair stuff and get the same thing, but you can have like meaningful items with that system. One more 2 minutes. Let's go.
Last
Exceline,
question.
Thank you so much. Last question. What if, say, you were... Oh, God, I haven't even proofread this. What if you say you were a blacksmith? What if you could take a job for village making swords or something for the town guards, and maybe you need to go get / mine or smelt it into ingots and then forge the sword, but say you toss modifiers into it like gems that maybe make it increase in attack power or stamina?
Is that a
Is
question?
that a question? That
was more of a
statement. I like
yeah, that's. I think that's exactly what we're talking about. I think there should be definitely this idea of being a blacksmith in a village. I think there should be a possibility to take on, maybe if there was like a list of orders or something, and you could take jobs perhaps to fill those orders. I think that could be an interesting system, but open to griefing. I think going to get or like mine the ore. I think that could create a lot of like interesting relationships with people, because you need people to first find where the ore is, and then I think there should be some sort of system of having to transport the ore back again, so to kind of create like a web of codependencies. Smelting, forging, getting modifiers. I really like Zaphos. I know you talk about the cube world system of adding gems to things. I think is a very it's a really sort of elegant system, and like it has so much flexibility and customization. I think that's fantastic, and increasing attack power and stamina. That's an interesting point actually, because they've said they don't really want gear to just have a flat stat increase. They want it to modify the way that abilities work. So I think that could be an incredibly interesting thing as well. Anyone wanna take this?
No, we're out of time.
No.
I think you said it well.
We've talked a lot about crafting.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about.
We've talked a lot about crafting this week, so
yeah.
All right, fantastic. I guess that puts us dead on midnight, my
all
time,
right.
proper time.
So next week, before we take off here, everybody make sure you check out eqnexus.com. It is the premier spot to go get all of your EverQuest Next chats and discuss all this stuff with us over there. All of us are on the forums. We'll chat with you, so if you have any questions. And next week, we're going to talk about switching classes, but I do want to talk specifically about the game development for Landmark, how much time they have until the game comes out. Will they be able to get testing done in time? There happens to be a person in the audience right now who is a game tester professionally, and maybe I can talk them in to wanting to join us for that episode, because that's what I think we wanted to talk about anyway, right? Discussing Landmark's ramp up, and if we have enough time to even get to all the things they promised within winter of this next year they said winter this year.
Well, next week that puts us halfway through September, so time's ticking down if they want to sneak it in this year.
Yeah. So I'll try to contact this person and see if they want to join us for the show. If not, we can still talk about it, because there is a lot to talk about for that. So everybody make sure you check out eqnexus.com. They're our sponsors, and thanks everybody so much tonight for coming and chatting with us. It was a fast show,
Definitely.
but we had to wrap it up quickly. They wanted us about an hour, so there we are.
There it is.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Good night, everybody. This is Geek Domo's Lock and Zappos saying, see ya!
Doodles.
Doodles.